Can you please define what a retrospective is and the power it has to make initiatives successful?
Yeah. So retrospectives to me happen both personally and in groups. They can happen at any cadence, especially, when applied to projects. They might be at the end of a sprint. They might be a moment even in the middle. I do retrospectives, I feel like daily, on situations or ways of thinking and stuff like that. It's really a time when you're looking back at everything that you did and you do an assessment. And I think it's also a good time for you to recenter as a person yourself, because if you are with a group of people that are, the goal is really honesty when you're in that group, is for people to be honest about the way that they felt things went, and also to be open to other perspectives. And so you're sitting around with other folks and you ask them, how do you think this last sprint went? How do you think this particular piece of the project went? What are you basing that on? Was there anyone else who felt differently about it here? Because a lot of times, our experience is very solo most of the time. If it went well for me, it must have went well for everyone. And I think that part, that is the power of a retrospective, because when you hear everyone's opinion about what happened, you can identify the gaps within the systems that you've developed to structure work and also structure interaction, so that you can make different changes, small or big, to make sure that the next sprint is even better with better results.
Yeah, I completely agree. That my experience of them, it's predominantly under an agile framework where we were doing a sprint, and a lot of this was to do with service migration from one data center into Azure. And basically we would just look at the process that we'd followed, and we just ask the three questions: what went well, what could we do better, and is there anything that we should stop doing? And by having it in an open forum where the teams feel comfortable, and that is also a key role of the leader. We were doing it with teams in India, within Russia, and looking at where we'd had challenges. What we found was that we didn't have all of the the first time we didn't have all of the phone numbers. We had an issue and we needed one of the guys in India and we didn't have his phone number, and we had to wait 4 hours for him to come online so we could say, hey, we've got a problem. And that allowed us to say, okay, right, what we need in the run book is we need everybody's contact details. And you're just able to refine the process, and things that you would never think would go wrong can and do go wrong. And then it's just a question of, okay, what can we do next time to make sure that doesn't happen? And you've got to get a perspective from everybody. Don't let anybody dominate the conversation. I'm not picking on anybody when I say this, but you don't want to hear from the developers how well the testing went. You want to hear from the testers for how well the testing went. They might have a different perspective, and you've got to have that open, and as you said, open, honest assessment. And what we found when we did that was, the testing wasn't great, and then we found that the developers were spending too much time documenting and not enough time testing. So we said, okay, how can we go to documentation light, because we don't have any more time. You've got a day when we do the migration. So how can we get more of that time spent testing? And we were working with the testers. We went to a lighter set of documentation, which then allowed there to be about an 80-20 split between testing and documentation. Whereas, the testers would rather it be 60-40, and the developers would rather it was 100% zero. But everybody could see the benefit of some documentation, and we were able to get that to that right level and then move forward smoothly.